Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday, and welcome on in to today's FreightWaves Now Community Spotlight. I'm Kaylee Nix, and joining me this morning is Thomas Wasson, host and writer of Your Loaded and Rolling Communities Space, which is for big fleets, small fleets who want to be big, and everybody in between. Thomas, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be on. A lot of great stuff. All fleets are welcome. That's right.
All fleets are welcome here. And rumor has it, Thomas, you've been going to the gym. You've been getting a little swole, maybe lifting some weights, doing some push-ups. And thanks to the guidance of one of our Freight community's favorite fitness influencers, say that 5 times fast, maybe you're starting to see a little bit of progress, right?
I'm working on it. I'm not as good yet as Michael Lumbard, but aspire to be. And I'm doing the Orange Theory. He does some Orange Theory stuff as well. But I think it's such a great segue into that topic because health and fitness typically is not associated with over-the-road trucking.
Absolutely. We know a lot of drivers really struggle with their fitness because it is in and of itself a sedentary lifestyle, right? You may be logging millions of miles on the road, but all that is happening in a seated position with your arms often out in front of you. And you're not really getting a whole lot of physical activity unless you're a flatbed driver. Those guys really have to put in some work. But we also know that the lifestyle of a truck driver isn't the healthiest, right? You have to deal with often a messed up sleep schedule. Maybe you're not dealing with some of the healthiest foods on the road. So that physical activity is really important. And Michael Lumbard, as you mentioned, previous driver, now turned fitness instructor and kind of freight influencer, has really made it his mission to teach drivers the benefits of getting healthy. Talk to us a little bit about his mission.
Well, it's really fascinating. He comes from a long line of people in the industry. Lombard trucking was around since the early 1900s. It used to haul on a horse and cartage. So a little fun fact. And then, he went into the Marines, didn't expect to go into trucking. He gets his CDL, and while he's training for marathons as a driver, he thought, well, why don't I just start record some of this stuff? And it picked up steam. He actually built and made a community around it because it turns out that influencers for drivers who focus on fitness and eating right, nutrition, the holistic thing for your body, a lot of times the trucking influence space is more about your pocket and your wallet, how to make more money, how to drive more. He takes this different approach. And I think it's really awesome because it highlights something that we don't think about, which is he has a great quote over here. He says, the lifestyle of a driver reduces the life expectancy and can take upwards of 10 years off their life. Instances of chronic illnesses are very much escalated compared to the normal population. That just sticks with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things that we often don't think about from a general public standpoint when we think about maintaining a good driver lifestyle, right? And from a company standpoint, taking part in some of these fitness initiatives or making sure that your drivers are healthy isn't of itself a working benefit, right? Giving them a schedule where they have the opportunity to come home and rest in their beds instead of resting in their cabs all the time, or making sure that they are scheduled out in places where they can find a good meal that's not just fast food hot dog and, a gas station Pepsi. That's the type of stuff that really is that added extra benefit if you are a driver who's maybe looking to switch to a different company or switch to a different carrier. When we're looking at fitness and longevity, does that also get seen reflected in driver retention rates? And is that one of maybe the reasons why we're struggling to see some of this driver retention is because health isn't taken so seriously by a lot of these mega carriers?
Health and lifestyle is a very large impact. CDL schools and driver communities prepare you for the operating of the motor vehicle, but we don't consider the fact that you're out for weeks at a time living in a motor vehicle in the size of a box that's smaller than a typical, bathroom. The bathroom is actually larger than the back of a cab in my house. And so when you think about that, where the cramped conditions that they're living in, as well as being sedentary and driving for 11 hours a day if they're maximizing their drive time, there's a really big opportunity to help for try and improve it. But right now the system is kind of messed up. You are on over the road for 3 to 4 weeks out because you got to get time off. So normally every first 2 weeks you get a day and then a day for each week out. So maybe by the time week 4 comes around, you get like 3 days at home. It's pretty common that we see in the industry. But, the truck stop food, heavily processed, CPG, sodas, little access to fresh food. The food you do get, if it's like a skillet place or restaurants, are also, normally processed foods. The only locations you can park are typically truck stops. So it's not like you can just go to a Whole Foods or fit into a parking lot. Good luck finding a Walmart if you're allowed to park there in the first place. Depends on the location and the manager. Last time I checked. And so for drivers, it's an added challenge. They have very tiny fridges, even if they have one. And then you have the inverters and things to get it. So it takes, compared to you and I who are working and we are not on the road, we can carve out that time. But a driver does not have the time to really focus on their health other than periods of when they're stopped or on break. And oftentimes, if anyone's been driving for 11 hours straight, you're exhausted. I get driving for like 6 hours straight. I'm already tired of dealing with drivers. I'm not behind 80,000 pounds in an 18-wheeler. So there's a lot of structural challenges is what I'm trying to say. That means that we have to devote extra time and extra advocacy to help drivers first recognize that this is a very unhealthy lifestyle and that the first steps are just doing little things. And Lumbard gave me a great, when I spoke to him in person, interviewed him, cut out the soda. Try to cut out the soda. When you're making changes in your lifestyle, start small. That's the best way to make the right habits, because that's some of the big stuff, all that sugars and stuff you're taking. Your body, I can eat a lot of cake and I'll feel full. But if I drink a lot of soda, it actually hacks your brain a little bit. You can keep drinking sugary soda because your body processes it differently. Those are little things like that can be smaller steps to help establish the very early foundations of a healthier lifestyle.
The two best things that you can cut out as a driver, and I've heard this from multiple sources, caffeine and nicotine. Get rid of both of those things and you will start to see vast improvements in your health, just from a brain hacking standpoint, as you mentioned. Let's move on really quickly, Thomas, to our second topic here that you are covering. And again, another thing that is going to benefit drivers and something that people need to be paying attention to, predatory towing fees. We've talked about this a lot. Now Florida is actually doing something about it.
And this is a really cool thing to look at. Back in November, for a little context, ATRI produced the Predatory Towing report, and it basically showcased how people are getting overcharged. Like a majority of the respondents are saying they're getting overcharged. They're getting all these little extra fees. So that identified a very clear problem. So the Florida legislation, both houses, states have houses like the government. There's your civics class people. The House and the Senate have passed it and waiting to be signed by Governor DeSantis. Here's what it does. You have to have a rate sheet showing your fees. I know it's crazy. It has to be visible. Secondly, you have to furnish said rate sheet if you asked. So, hey, guess what? I actually have to know what I'm going to be charged before you impound my crap and then charge me. And then also, if those fees that you give me are higher than an agreed upon published rate of what we think it should be, then we can consider it unreasonable. And it's a crazy thought to think that in the realm of towing, we have not had this visibility before.
And of course, if you are a smaller driver, if you're a smaller fleet, those towing fees can really add up. If you're a big guy and you are continuing to see these predatory tows happen in your fleets, take action, right? They are the ones that have the voice. They are the ones that have this ability to step up and maybe bring it to your state legislators. Don't know if this is a problem that we could get on the national scale, but we definitely know that bringing it to your state legislators, if you are a bigger fleet, you definitely have the power to do that. Thomas, let's talk about the show and the newsletter coming up this week. Who can we expect to see?
Definitely working on some CAS information data. There's some good stuff talking about early February showing some signs of life. A little bit of good news, of course. It's going to be diving into a few other topics. It's been kind of a little bit of a slower news week, but I think some RFP stuff. I'm going to talk about my recent interview that we did with David Spencer, VP of Market Intelligence at Arrive Logistics. Got to dive into some really good topics, large carriers, market conditions, and even Mexico trucking, because I'm on a bender with that. I can't believe WhatsApp is the most common tracking software used to find Mexican carriers who don't have ELDs and use paper logs. So yeah, get a little bit of that. Coming up next episode, we're going to have Best Pass on the show. Going to be talking about tolling and other stuff that they're working on. Saves a lot of money. It's stuff that I like to talk about because if you fix tolling, routing, and other things and be able to pay those tolls, like a $2 toll can turn into $50. There's some predatory tolling going on. So watch out at the booths.
Tolling and towing. When are we going to get our money right? Thomas, thank you for joining us this morning for Loaded and Rolling. Of course, we can find you on the interwebs and every Tuesday right here on FreightWaves TV. We'll talk to you next week.